Many of the great hunter-gatherer cultures of the world, now is the 11th hour. For today, they face the relentless impact of the Western culture that has radically changed the lifestyles of the Eskimo, the North American Red Indian, Australian Aborigine, and the Kalahari Bushman. It has eroded their traditional beliefs, removed their hunting grounds. Today, like endangered species, they face extinction, and with their passing, incredible knowledge of nature, passed down the generations, is lost.
He's a hunter, he's a bushman, he's a naturalist of game. He's an artist in a dying game. He's part of nature's plan, he's living on the land. He's an actor without a stage. And knowledge is his trade, instinct is his way. Survival is the name of his game. And hunger is nearby, thirst can say goodbye. And death comes alive to many things. He's the man we call the tracker. He has the eyes to see, living on his instinct year to year. He's at one with the prey. He's part of nature's way, and he's living in the twilight of his day. Adapting, surviving every test. But trading stars and bread will change the tracker's way. He's a species fading away. He's the tracker. He's the tracker. The tracker, he's my friend.
One of the great hunter-gatherers of southern Africa were the Shangaan, a splinter group of the Zulu nation. Their lives are intimately linked to nature, and their names often depict the animals among which they live. This is Judas Ndlovu, the elephant, the head of this small village. Elmon is the hunter, a superb tracker and naturalist on whom the village relies to bring in the food. Rosalina is Judas's wife, and thus the most senior woman in the village. Angelina is Elmon's first wife. In the Shangaan culture, a man may have as many wives as he can afford. Aletta is Elmon's second wife. To ensure survival, Shangaans traditionally have large families. Veriad's job is to tend the few goats and cattle which belong to the village. Cattle are a symbol of wealth and are slaughtered only on special occasions, or if the village faces starvation. A few chickens and pigs are kept as an additional source of food, and near the village, the women cultivate a patch of maize. It is into this world that two young white people have decided to spend a year of their lives to experience the Shangaan culture at first hand. During 5 years of filming leopards, wildlife cameraman John Varty had sought the help of Elmon Mhlongo, whose incredible tracking ability enabled him to capture scenes of leopard never previously filmed. Now Elmon has invited him back to live in his village and share his lifestyle. Lynn Ayres, having grown up with the Xhosa people, now has the opportunity to compare the two cultures. Judas shows John and Lynn to their hut. explaining that the elephant dung should be left to smolder and so keep the mosquitoes away. The Shangans sleep on a mat on the ground, and a giraffe bone serves as a pillow. Now it is time for the women to show Lin around the village, showing her the important places such as the kitchen, the pantry, and the dining room. From now on, Lin's life will follow the same pattern as the Shangan women's, and all meals will be eaten separately from the men. Judas provides John with some shoes made with true practicability from car tires. Lin's are made from kudu skin. John's first lesson is how to bind the arrowheads, for as a hunter, he must have first-hand knowledge of the hunting tools he will use. Similarly, Lin is taught the fundamental skills expected of the women. How to hoe the maize and grind the meal. Rosalina also teaches her how to make the sleeping mats called sangu. The first essential is for John to become proficient with a bow. He will require patience and many hours of practice before he is able to hit the target of elephant dung at a distance of 40 paces. He must also learn the hand signals the men use for silent communication with one another while on the hunt. Elmon shows him how to use the shell of the wild monkey orange to call to each other so as not to alarm the prey. Elmon demonstrates how to drop an arrow on the prey if it is out of direct range, and how to stampede the herd to see if any animals are injured, and therefore potential prey. Elmon shows him how to approach without alarming the prey, and which animals have good eyesight, and which have good scent and hearing. How to distinguish different tracks, and which are fresh. Now it is time to put some of these newly learned skills to the test. Elmon finds some fresh elephant tracks and takes John in. But as always, basic knowledge and precautions apply. Although the elephant has poor eyesight, its sense of smell and hearing is acute. But this time, fortune is not on the hunter's side, and when the situation becomes threatening, their attitude is completely pragmatic. There is no room for heroes in the wilderness. If you have to run for survival, you run. This pragmatic, philosophic approach characterizes the ongoing nature of the hunt. But it is sharpened by a fine eye for opportunism. Here, a group of perched vultures give evidence that a kill has been made. The hunters move in and discover that it is lions that have made the kill. Fortunately, they have eaten their fill and move off as the men approach. A fully grown kudu bull is a valuable find, and not only for food. The men are a long way from home, and some of the meat is roasted immediately, flavored by salt from a stone produced from the donga. The sinews of the kudu will be used for binding arrows, and the skin for making bags and shoes. There's even an aesthetic bonus, for the horn, Elmon explains, will make a fine musical instrument. For among the Shangans, nothing is wasted. The wilderness, in its continually unpredictable way, has another bonus in store for the hunters. Nearby, a female cheetah and her partly grown cubs are hunting. She captures a female impala, but does not kill it. Instead, she calls for the cubs to complete the job, as this is part of the training they require in being taught to kill. But for the cheetah, the delay will prove costly. The hunters have seen the running impala and heard the alarm calls. Now it is relatively easy to pinpoint the cheetah from the sound of her chirruping call to her cubs. The cheetah have already started to feed, so the men must move in quickly.
Mama!
The men are jubilant, for they have taken 2 kills from 2 predators in one day.
You know, today just proves that we were once a hunter and a scavenger. Like the lion and hyena, we were perfectly adapted for the natural world. But then, 13,000 years ago, this was to change. This was the first time we started to cultivate crops, started to domesticate stock. And before, when we had adapted to nature, now we adapted nature to suit ourselves. And this was the giant step that mankind took. He now had his food under control. And this opened up his time and his energy for other things, to build what we have today, this fantastic civilization. But now scientists believe that we face the most critical test of all, the ability to adapt to our own civilization.
Hunter-gatherers have burnt the bush for millions of years, and the Shangans are no exception. Fire not only burns away the old grass, but also keeps the bush in check. However, it is with the specific intention of ensuring that the game will be attracted to their hunting area in the next season that the Shangans burn the grass. Furthermore, the fire can serve the purpose of a hunting aid by chasing the game toward the waiting hunters. In this case, the fire stampedes a herd of wildebeest. The hunters move swiftly, trying to obtain a position for a shot, but the herd is moving too quickly for them to succeed. Judas searches the burned area for delicacies, such as tortoises roasted by the fire, while a marabou stork, with the inherent opportunism, takes advantage of the situation by catching insects disturbed by the fire. Meanwhile, the women have invited Lynn to join them on a fishing expedition. Before they approach the water, Angelina carries out a traditional ritual to protect them from the crocodiles. Ironically, she was later to die in the jaws of a crocodile. But for now, it is a fine day, and fishing is regarded as a relaxed and sociable occupation by people whose lives are not dominated and governed by clocks and deadlines. If they do not catch fish today, there is always tomorrow. A millisack makes a good net for the smaller fish, and Rosalina shows Lynn how to use the traditional fishing basket. On the way home, they collect a reed the Shangans call mizi, which will be used for making sleeping mats and baskets. With a good supply of fish and meat in the village, the hunters can turn their attention to searching for delicacies like honey. Much traditional ingenuity is shown here. A bee is located and dipped in water to make it docile. A piece of zebra hair is then tied around the body of the bee, and on the end is attached a leaf or piece of grass. The bee is now weighted down and is unable to fly as swiftly, making its progress easier to follow. However, the hunters are out of luck on this occasion, as the bee returns to a hive which is on the move. No chance of honey here. But Judas has established an astonishing rapport in his hunting area with birds known as honey guides, and now uses his pipe to call up one of them. Before long, the honey guide makes his appearance, and his chattering call in turn causes a honey badger to respond. Over the years, this agreeable bird has established a symbiotic relationship with both man and badger, leading them both without fail to beehives. The hunters believe that in repayment, they must always leave some honeycomb for the bird, and that, if they fail to do this, the bird will lead them to a snake. This myth has probably come into being due to the fact that snakes often raid old beehives for the dead bees and also use them as homes. This particular hive is found to be sealed with wax. The hive has been abandoned and only some dead bees remain. However, the smoke has disturbed a mamba and Elmon is forced to beat a hasty retreat. Undaunted, they locate another honey guide, and this time the bird leads them to an active hive. Elmon shows John how to rub his body with a plant called mbizana, which will repel the bees and will prevent the men from being stung. Judas, however, believes that the smoke from the tambuti will make the bees drowsy, and that this will be sufficient protection for him. The men take turns at chopping, while the honey guide waits patiently for his reward. Eventually, the honeycomb is revealed. Interestingly, only Judas has been stung. Elmon cuts a piece of marula bark and rubs it on to soothe the pain. Judas makes sure he has left some honeycomb for the bird before they depart. It's been thirsty work, so the men stop to enjoy some tea made from the pods of the russet bush willow. Nature even supplies suitable cups in the form of the shells of the giant land snails. The hard-won honey makes an ideal sweetener.
You'll find it in the desert and in the forest too. You'll follow it for me and for you. He'll find it in the heat and he'll find it in the shade. He'll follow it to hell and back again. He's the man we call the tracker. He has the eyes to see, living on his instinct year to year. He's at one with the prey, he's part of nature's way, but he's living in the twilight of his day.
Early next day, the men have set out to hunt warthog, regarded by the Shangans as one of the finest of all meats. They split up, checking all holes in termite mounds for fresh tracks of the hogs, but have no success. On the second day, they discover fresh tracks down a hole. They use smoke in an attempt to dislodge the warthogs from their burrows. But, unknown to the men, this particular mound has an exit hole at the back, and the warthogs escape. But if one technique doesn't work, you try another. That's the Shangaan philosophy. Patience and planning. At sunset, the hunters move to the high ground so they can see exactly to which hole the warthogs return for the night. Early in the morning of the third day, they return to the hole. The plan works to perfection. The men have to work quickly, as the distress signals may have attracted nearby predators. To improve the taste, the carcass is singed over a fire and the hair scraped off. The heart and liver are cooked at once, and they are ready for the long journey home.
What you've just witnessed was an extremely harsh scene. Nobody would argue with that. But bear in mind, these are tribal hunters, hunting with primitive weapons. And in the history of animal populations, never have these tribal hunters overkilled or decimated the animal populations. Let's reflect now to the Western culture. We killed 70 million bison in the American prairies. We killed over 100 million animals in the Cape Flats. Even today, we're wiping out the rainforest at the rate of the size of Switzerland every year. We construct fences in Botswana across the migratory patterns of these animals, killing thousands annually. We dump pesticides and chemicals into unique systems like the Okavango swamps, paralyzing the biological processes. Have we perhaps not become confused? Who are the real conservationists?
Judas shows John how to remove the knuckles. These he will sell to the witch doctor, who will add them to his collection of bones. Angelina tells Lynn that if she rubs on the warthog fat, it will make her more attractive to men. Lynn does not appear convinced by this particular perfume.
Smells.
The meat is stored in the cool, dark recesses of the thatched pantry, to be used gradually over the next few weeks. In Africa, over 300 million people burn firewood for their energy requirements, and it is the unending task of the women to keep the village supplied.
Okay. Fine. Come on, Angelina. Come on, Angelina.
Unbeknown to Rosalina, a Mozambique spitting cobra has been hibernating in her bundle of wood. Now it has been disturbed and is angry. Reacting to movement, its defense mechanism is to spit a blinding stream of venom into its attacker's eyes. Lin, in a typical Western reaction, runs to the village to seek help. The snake's reaction is to disgorge its most recent meal so as to lighten its body weight to assist its escape. But Angelina and Aletta rely on their instincts and traditional knowledge to deal with the crisis. First, they tie Rosalina's hands to prevent her rubbing her eyes. Angelina uses the milk from her breasts to neutralize the venom in Rosalina's eyes. Meanwhile, Aletta runs to a nearby dry riverbed and digs for water. Unsuccessful, she cuts the root of a marula tree for water. Soon she has enough to bathe Rosalina's eyes and wash away the remaining venom. All that remains is to lead her back to the village where her recovery will be completed. The incredible knowledge, quick thinking, and self-sufficiency of the women has averted what could have been a tragedy. Water is another necessity for survival, and again it is the women's task to fetch water for the village. On the way to the river, they show Lin how to clean her teeth using the magic guari bush. Rosalina also introduces Lin to the African wattle tree, the leaves of which are used as toilet paper, and are softer than the softest toilet paper. There's a use for, and a remedy for, virtually everything. A nasty scratch on Lin's neck is effectively treated with a poultice made from the leaves of the buffalo thorn.
That's burning.
Finally, Rosalina shows Lin a plant called dienda, which is used for soap. When tested in a nearby pool, it lathers impressively. But life in the wilderness is never completely secure. Molded by millions of years of evolution, the design of the crocodile as a killing machine is virtually perfect. With just part of the head above water, all three senses are brought into play: eyesight, hearing, and smell. In attack, his powerful webbed feet and long tail propel him forward at great speed. But perhaps the crocodile's patience and cunning are his finest and most lethal attributes. The women start their journey home, but Angelina still has some washing to do and remains behind alone. In so doing, she disregards one of the unwritten fundamental laws of the bush. For to be alone is to be vulnerable. Two tragedies have hit the village within a short space of time. Both involve a reptile. This is an extremely bad omen. And so it is decided to offer a goat as a sacrifice to appease the ancestral spirits. But the run of bad events is not over. The goat's bleating distress call is heard by a nearby leopard. A quick charge, and it's all over. The leopard speedily drags off the sacrificial goat and characteristically then hoists it into a tree to commence feeding. Aletta returns to the village to inform the men that the goat has been taken. If at all possible, the intended sacrifice to the ancestral spirits must be retrieved. The men set off immediately and before long find the tracks where the leopard has dragged the unfortunate goat. The leopard attack on the sacrificial goat is definite proof that the village is bewitched. A witch doctor is summoned immediately to throw the bones and rid them of the bad spirits, the Umtagati. Since the whites introduced wire into this area at the turn of the century, the tribal hunter has been quick to exploit its strength to catch larger animals. The snare is, however, indiscriminate, and powerful animals such as lion and buffalo often break the snare, dragging it around until succumbing to a slow, agonizing death. On the way back from setting their snare, the hunters split up. Judas goes hunting for smaller game, while Elmon and John investigate some vultures dropping down onto a kill. Lions have killed a giraffe. The men decide that the kill is old and that the lions are well fed. Young and therefore inexperienced, they should have no problem in chasing them off. As always, the hunters weigh up risk against reward before attempting to chase off dangerous predators like lion. The meat is too rotten to be of any use, but other opportunities present themselves. Using a rope plaited from the Sansevieria plant and a stick from an ebony tree, Elman sets up a trap for the unsuspecting vultures.
Ja, kommer greit, det.
Ja.
Yan timon go for.
Ja.
Vanga masiko sukomele kote kabang.
Before leaving, some giraffe hair from the tail is collected for ornaments. By driving the lions off, the men have done the vultures a favor, and before long, the scavengers from the sky drop down to feed. Returning to the snare site the next day, the men establish that a herd of buffalo have passed through, and that a young buffalo has been caught by the snare. After a lengthy struggle, the buffalo has broken the wire and escaped. The hunters estimate that the herd is likely to be only a few hours ahead of them, and that the young buffalo has probably been greatly weakened by the struggle. Their arrows, however, are too light to be effective on a thick-skinned animal, such as the buffalo, and they must resort to poison. Even this is available in the wilderness, if, like Judas, you know what to look for. In this case, it is a tree of the Acocanthera genus, known as the Bushman poison tree. While the roots, bark and leaves of this are boiled, Elmon brings in some roots of the impala lily, a strong poison in its own right, This, added to the mixture, will help the poison to adhere to the arrow. The concoction is boiled, allowed to cool, and then the residue reboiled. To test the poison strength, a frog is pricked. If it takes less than 6 hops, the poison is strong enough. After 2 hops, the frog succumbs. Now the men have to be extremely careful, as a mere 2 milligrams of the poison is enough to kill an adult man. To protect themselves, and also to keep the poison fresh, they wrap a piece of wet kudu skin around the arrowhead, and the hunt is on. Instinctively, the adult buffaloes form a protective ring around the wounded calf, and the hunters are unable to get a clear shot. Their only prospect now is to try stampeding the herd, in the hope that the injured animal will tire and drop behind. For a brief moment, the calf stands clear. This is it. Elmon unleashes an arrow. The swift-acting poison takes effect. One final arrow, and it's all over. For this hunt, patience, perseverance, and ancient bushcraft and knowledge have combined for success. The wire snare, which had dug deep into the animal's throat, is at once removed, and the carcass is ready for skinning. But the hunters are far from home, and with this much meat, they are vulnerable. Once again, the most pragmatic solution is found. They carry about half the meat halfway back to the village, and decide to hide it in a tree. Using wild sisal, Elmon ties the meat up in the branches, placing it hopefully out of the reach of scavengers. Then it's the long haul back to the site of the kill to retrieve the remainder of the meat. While they are gone, some lions smell the meat in the tree and move in. Contrary to popular belief, a lion will not hesitate to climb a tree to rob a kill. After a long journey, the men return to the site of the hidden meat, unaware of the presence of the lions. But this is a large pride, and some of the lions are still hungry. This, though, is how it is in the wilderness. After all the effort and energy the men have expended, they are still without meat. But for all this, the attitude is philosophical. You win some, you lose some. One day the lions get our meat, the next we get theirs. It is in times like this that their incredible knowledge saves the day. Elmon finds some wood borer beetles and believes that there may be wood borer larvae in the decomposing wood of the tree. He shows John how to listen for the soft grating sound of the feeding larva. Within an hour, the men have enough of the larva, which, when roasted, will provide a meal for the village. The key words are adaptation, awareness, improvisation. Judas points out the dung of the Mopani worm beneath the marula tree, and investigation reveals that the tree is full of the worms. Another food source regarded by the Shangans as a delicacy when roasted or fried, a tribal man's potato chips. For liquid sustenance, the hunters dig out a melon named mugwili, which provides them with nourishment in times of drought. Some marula nuts are cracked. The fruit of the marula has a vitamin C content 4 times that of an orange, while the nut itself is high in vitamin E. Elmon cuts a fresh tambuti branch. Within minutes, Mopani bees are attracted to the sticky white sap. It is now a relatively simple matter to follow their flight path back to the hive. With the approach of the hunters, the bees try desperately to seal up their tunnel that leads to their hive. John watches as Judas and Elmon show how to test the depth of the hive with a piece of grass. Within half an hour, Elmon has dug the hive out. The Mopani bees are stingless, and their honey is of the sweetest kind. While John and Judas return to check out the vulture trap, Elmon tries to hunt a daker. Elmon is unsuccessful, but John and Judas discover a vulture in the trap. The Shangaan believe that the vulture has foresight because of its uncanny ability to find kills. So the vulture will fetch a good price from the witch doctor, who will use its heart, eyes, bones, beak and feet to predict future events. Now a storm is brewing, and Elmon and Judas advise John to stand with them under the buffalo thorn tree, since they believe that it will protect them from the lightning. The rain has triggered the flight of millions of termites, and birds, animal and man are all quick to take advantage of the feast. Using pieces of grass, the hunters lift out the termites and give us a fascinating glimpse into the remote past when man first began to use tools and weapons to catch his prey. The storm in the catchment area presents more immediate problems. The weary hunters find their homeward route blocked by the flooded river. They have two options: either to risk the hippo and crocodiles and try to cross the swollen waters, or spend the night in the bush. They decide to cross. The meal is roasted mopani worms and wood larvae, together with melon and termites.
What was so incredible for me when we lost our meat to the lions was the philosophical attitude of the hunters. They just drew on this incredible reservoir of knowledge. We found the mopani worms, we used the termites, we found the melons, we robbed the mopani bees, and it's this fantastic knowledge that is in fact dying in Africa today. And there I was, a so-called educated man with a university degree, and yet at times I felt like an ignoramus. The tragic thing is that Elmon's children, for example, will not have the knowledge that he has. And today we see examples like Ethiopia. Millions of people dying of starvation on the most diverse continent of the planet. The paradox of Africa, dying amongst plenty. The reason? They've lost the knowledge on how to survive from a natural area.
The dry season has arrived, and the herds of game depart from the dried-out savanna grasslands in search of new pastures. The elephants move to the rivers in search of food and water. As the animals have to adapt to the changes in conditions, so too must the hunters become creative in their hunting techniques. Elmon shows John how to dig out a root called shiranzana. This, when pulverized and stirred up in water, acts as an effective poison on fish. Elmon is careful to select an isolated pool away from the main river, so as to ensure that the effects of the poison are contained. Within an hour, the fish float to the surface. Once degutted, they are safe to eat. The dry season has caused a porcupine, Africa's largest rodent, to start stealing mealie meal from the village. A simple trap made from reeds and baited with mealie meal is set. Judas wakes John the next morning with the news that the porcupine is caught in the trap. It is still alive. The trap is ingenious, narrowing towards the front to allow the porcupine in. But when he tries to reverse, his quills become securely caught. The women collect quills as ornaments before removing the porcupine to the pantry, where its delicious meat will provide food for the village for the next few days. Baboons have also taken to stealing chickens and eggs. Elmon sets a spring trap just outside the village and baits it with mealie meal. At first, hornbills, starlings and weavers fly down to feed. Then the baboons arrive. The first baboon plays it safe and only takes the mealie meal outside the trap. The second cunningly holds the trap down. But the third is impatient and inexperienced and pays the price. Realizing that the trap has been sprung, the older baboons rush in for the rest of the mealie meal. Another spring trap is providing a valuable alternative food source for the village. Elmon carefully plucks the crested francolin, which has been caught in the trap. Some of the feathers will be kept for the shafts of arrows, while others make good earbuds.
This film has clearly demonstrated that the attitude of hunter-gatherers to wild animals is completely different to that of Western people. How can we expect these tribal people to have the same perceptions about wild animals when snakes and crocodiles attack them, baboons and elephants raid their crops, lions and leopards kill their stock? Clearly, these cultures have survived in harmony with wildlife for thousands of years. They will not hesitate to kill a single vulture with a cleverly made trap. But they would never think of killing a whole population with chemicals or pesticides. For their very own survival depends on a sustained utilization of the prey species. Modern conservationists have just realized this. Tribal hunters have been practicing it for years. If we were to be brutally honest with ourselves as conservationists, we would have to admit that the conservation movement in Africa has failed. Millions of dollars are poured into anti-poaching schemes, yet species like the black rhino continue to decline and are now facing extinction. How do you impress on a hungry person outside the park that the wildlife inside is for the exclusive use of the high-income and privileged people? Clearly you don't. In my opinion, a hunter-gatherer using the park under control is as important as a tourist spending their foreign currency there. Without the involvement and goodwill of these people, these islands we call game parks will continue to shrink in the face of the sea of exploding human populations expected to pass the 1 billion mark in Africa in the next 20 years. This film is an urgent plea for a greater tolerance of the different cultures of the world, in the realization that the polycultures are a strength, not a weakness. Each culture has knowledge, a philosophy to offer mankind, and no longer can we afford the dominance of one culture at the expense of another.